Section 35 of Journal of the Reverend Francis Asbury, Volume 2. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Brian Keenan. Wednesday, 29. I rode to William Nelson's, and after dinner to Nathan Davies's. Thursday morning I was very weak, and have slow but almost continual fevers. I preached with great difficulty in the afternoon, and returned to William Nelson's. This night I felt a total change of mind. The weakness of my body and the cold and unsettled state of the weather made me, with the general advice of the preachers present, give up the cause. They also advised me to make the best of my way to Baltimore, and not to ride in the rain. It may be the Lord intends to lead me in a way I have not yet known. It is perhaps best that I should go with all expedient haste from conference to conference, only stopping at the towns and chief places on Sabbath days. Live or die, I must ride. After all the disappointments, perhaps every purpose is answered but one. I have sent Brother Kobler to take charge of Kentucky and Cumberland, by visiting the whole every quarter. Brother Bird I have stationed in the Holstein district. I have written a circumstantial letter to Brother Poythress and the Kentucky Conference. I have made a plan for the stationing of the preachers, at least those of any standing, and now I will make the best of my way to Baltimore. Perhaps there may be some special call for me there. I must, as the burden of meeting the conferences, ordaining and stationing the preachers resteth on me, save myself. I am peculiarly concerned for the cities. The prosperity of the work of God depends much on having proper men for any and every part of the work. Friday, 31. It being rainy, I rested. Saturday, April 1. The weather was clear and cold. We set off for Brother Baker's. My horse hath the honor of swimming Holstein River every time I visit this country. Sunday, 2. I felt better than I had done since I crossed the mountains. I preached on Acts 3:26, and was for pushing on again about 15 miles farther to Edward Cox's. We got lost and were an hour in the night. Monday, 3. We made a stretching ride of about 40 miles, and were another hour in the night, and came to Half Acres. I was properly outdone, and my fever returned and held me 30 hours. Tuesday, 4. I reached the Widow Russell's. I am scarce able to read, write, sing, or pray. Nevertheless, after I had rested, I preached in the evening. Virginia, Thursday, 6. We took our way up Walker's Valley. After riding about 8 miles, my weakness came on, and I was addressed by name and earnestly requested to stop and take refreshment and rest at Mr. McCarty's. Here we were richly provided for. The mother and daughter are most agreeable and kind. After commending ourselves and this affectionate family to God, we came to Benoni Banning's. As I was told, so I found this family, most attentively kind. We stopped here Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. My fever never left me, as I thought, from Monday until Friday night. I am kept cheerful, but very weak. My diet is chiefly tea, potatoes, Indian meal gruel, and chicken broth. My reading is only the Bible. I cannot think much, and only write a few letters. I think of my charge, of the conferences, and the church, and of my dear parents, who will probably outlive me. I must be made perfect through sufferings. I rest in rainy weather, and have to ride from 80 to 120 miles in a week. The way we now go, we have sometimes to ride 30 miles to get to a house. From the 9th of April to the 27th of May, I have kept no journal. The notes of our travels and troubles taken by Jonathan Bird and Joshua Wells will tell a small part of my sorrows and sufferings. I have traveled about 600 miles with an inflammatory fever, and fixed pain in my breast. I cannot help expressing the distinguishing kindness of some families where I have been forced by weakness to stop, Captain Shannon on Walker's Creek, my friend Scarborough on the Sinks of Greenbrier, Colonel Moffat and Brother Young in Augusta. Neither can I forget Mr. Lee and Moore, the Harrisons at Rocktown, and Brother and Sister M. Williams, Sisters Phelps and Reed in Winchester, and my dear kind friend Dr. Tiffin. By a strange providence, I was cast upon Eli Dorsey on Linganore, who nursed me as if I had been his own father. Maryland. From the 27th of May until June 10, no journal. We rode nearly 40 miles from Linganore to Baltimore. I lodged at Brother Hawkins's retreat, about 1 mile from the city. I lounged away a week in visiting a little. Sunday, June 18. I was only able to speak about 15 minutes. I recover but slowly. The constant resort of the wealthy and poor visiting me made me much ashamed that they should look after such a worthless lump of misery and sin. June 25. I met the male members of the society Sabbath morning, as I had met the sisters and the official members in the preceding week. I obtained the liberty of the managers of the African Academy to congregate the fathers as well as to teach the children. We had nearly 500 colored people. Brother Willis preached on Acts 7:7, and I added a few words. In the afternoon I gave a short exhortation at Mr. Otterbine's church, on Howard's Hill. I am now waiting for the making of a sulky. Thomas Barber, from Birmingham, England, took a second likeness of me, at the desire of my mother, to send to England. I am trying to organize the African church. I made interest for the use of Mr. Otterbine's church for Sabbath, in the morning and evening for the white people. I have attempted to promote society meetings at Old Town and the west end of the city, either at the Dunkers Meeting House or Mr. Otterbine's church. My feelings or my fears premonish me this will be a sickly summer. I visit, dine, and ride out every day, but it is very hard work for me to eat, drink, talk, and do nothing. As I am not a man of the world, the most of the conversation about it is irksome to me. I am taken from house to house, and the brethren wish the pleasure of seeing me, and those who are acquainted with their families will come to see me also. Monday, July 3. I attempted to preach in Dr. Allison's church, and felt more assisted than I expected. Tuesday, 4. I was taken in a chariot to Perry Hall, in company with Sister Fonerton. I felt the effects of my exertions on the Sabbath, the want of rest, rising early, and riding to Mr. Gough's. In my mind, I felt almost as in old times. God hath not left this house. I felt great love to the family in praying for them in the family and in the closet. I had an open and free conversation with Mr. Gough about his soul. I conversed with the servants also, and had freedom in prayer, although I felt weakness of body. I wrote a few letters and read a little in the Bible. The weather is excessively warm. Saturday, 8. I cannot now, as heretofore, spend 10 hours out of 16 in reading the Bible, in English or Hebrew, or other books, or write letters from morning until night. My bow is weak if not broken, but I have more time to speak to God and souls. Sabbath day I performed at Mr. Gough's alone. Wednesday, 12. I borrowed a servant at Mr. Gough's, and came on to Mr. Sheridan's house, northeast Cecil County. Here I borrowed another servant, and on Friday I rode to Wilmington, and stopped at Allen M. Lane's, now living there. Pennsylvania, Saturday, 15. Warm as it was, I reached Philadelphia, and Sabbath evening 16, I felt free to labor a little, feeble as I was, and enlarged on John 14:1. I have great reason to be thankful for my sulky. I should soon be silent without it. I wrote to Germantown to see aged Mother Steele and Sister Lusby, and found freedom, although I could hardly walk or talk, yet must needs speak to the women of the house about their souls. Dined at Brother Baker's retreat, and came back to the city very sick, and went to bed. New Jersey, Tuesday, 18. I came off to Burlington, and was much grieved to hear my appointments had been made, and not attended in consequence of my illness. Wednesday, 19. Dined at Crossweek's, at Brother Abbott's, once a traveling preacher, now a merchant. We came on to Father Hutchinson's. Here I was almost outdone with excessive heat. I stopped 4 days, but found it hard work to sit still. Monday, 24. We came to Brunswick, dined, prayed, and rejoiced to hear that God had kindled a living fire here, through the instrumentality of a brother from Elizabethtown. We came on to Elizabethtown, 40 miles. It was ample labor for man and horse. Here I was sick again. Tuesday, 25. I rode to Newark and dined with Mr. Ogden, a steady friend. After the rain, I came to New York. Here I spent a few painful days, being unable to visit or be visited. New York. On Monday I came to Shotwell's, very unwell, and the next day to Kingsbridge. Here I was compelled by affliction to spend 2 weeks. I then rode to New Rochelle and lodged at Mr. Sherwood's. Finding myself swelling in the face, bowels, and feet, I applied leaves of burdock, and then a plaster of mustard, which drew a desperate blister. I had such awful sore feet, I knew not but that they would mortify, and only after 2 weeks was I able to set them to the ground. I took cream of tartar and nitre daily, to cool and keep open the body. I also made use of the bark. Sunday, September 10. I began to walk once or twice across the room. Monday, 11. We began our route to Wilbraham. We had not ridden far over the rocks before I was taken very unwell. We stopped at Byram, at Father Banks's. I was soon put to bed with a very high fever, that held me through the night. I now began to conclude it was not the will of God I should proceed, and the brethren would not persuade me to go on. Brother Totten returned with me to Mother Sherwood's. I have had slight fevers, but expect to rest until about the 1st of October, which I hope, with riding a little every clear day, will restore me to health. Thursday, 14. I visited Nicholas Underhill's wife, who was near her trying hour. I hope it was good for me, for her, and for the family. I take a small portion of bark each day, and 1/3 of a common dose of cream of tartar and nitre, and hope I shall yet be raised up. My mind is stayed upon God, and I hope to be more holy, but I fear I shall never be able to ride and preach as I have done in former days, so as to be more useful. I have now much time to think of and review my whole life. The kindness of this Sherwood family is great. My dear Mamma, and Betsy Sherwood, and Jonathan and Bishop also. If I had not been at home here, what additional distress of mind would have attended me? My friends also were welcome to come and see me. Sabbath day, at the widow Sherwood's, I had the pleasure of hearing our brother Matthias make a pointed, profitable, and powerful discourse. It is now 8 weeks since I have preached. Awfully dumb Sabbaths. I have been most severely tried from various quarters. My fevers, my feet, and Satan would set in with my gloomy and nervous affections. Sometimes subject to the greatest effeminacy, to distress at the thought of a useless, idle life. But what brought the heavy pang into my heart, and the big tear to roll, that never rises without a cause, was the thought of leaving the connection without some proper men of their own election, to go in and out before them in my place, and to keep that order which I have been seeking these many years to establish. My aged parents were dear to me in their advanced age and dependent state. Like myself, they have spent what they had to spare for many years, nearly 40, in keeping open doors for the gospel and people of God. This burden hath been laid upon them. I am happy that I can now ride a little every clear day for my better health, and can eat and sleep better. I am left too much alone. I cannot sit in my room all day, making gloomy reflections on the past, present, and future life. Lord, help me, for I am poor and needy. The hand of God hath touched me, and I think Satan forts himself in my melancholy, unemployed, unsocial, and inactive hours. Sunday 17. I was strongly impressed in my mind months ago that this summer and fall would be marked with heavy afflictions. O Philadelphia, I have had very little faith for that city. I have often remarked the general contempt of the Sabbath, the constant noise of carriages. There is a perpetual disturbance of worshipping assemblies. It is true, one event cometh on the righteous and the wicked, but God will stand to his word. He hath punished, he will punish those that rob him. If report be true, the distress of the Philadelphians is great. 3/4 of the citizens are fled. Monday 18. I felt strength of faith and body, as if I should be raised up again. I rode for recreation 9 miles. The clouds are dispelled from my mind. Oh, that my future life may be holiness to the Lord, prudent and exemplary to many. I wished to speak to a poor African whom I saw in the field as I went out, and as I came along on my return, he was at a stone wall within 8 or 9 feet of me. Poor creature, he seemed struck at my counsel, and gave me thanks. Oh, it was going down into the Egypt of South Carolina after those poor souls of Africans I have lost my health, if not my life in the end. The will of the Lord be done. Wednesday 20. I rode about 14 miles. I met a messenger who came to desire my presence tomorrow at the funeral of our brother Van Ostrand. I have known him about 15 years, and had great confidence in the man. He hath labored as a local preacher, and 3 years as a traveling one. He had his seals, and I know one. Some will complain of his negligence in Elizabeth Circuit, but what could the man do? He gave his life, and perhaps caught the cause of his death by bad lodging and riding in cold weather. He told a friend he had settled his temporal and spiritual business. He then slept in peace. Brother Van Ostrand was a native of Long Island. He followed the fortune of King George in the Revolutionary War, but soon after peace he joined himself under King Jesus, and fought till he died in a good cause, as a Christian and a minister. I had some unpleasing symptoms, and am ready to conclude I shall linger into death, or at least never be restored to perfect health. My soul continually cries out, Thy will be done, O Lord. Thursday 21. I attended the funeral, and gave an exhortation. I have ridden 20 miles this day, with little rest and no food. Friday 22. I rode 8 or 10 miles. I was touched with the fever. Saturday 23. I slept well last night, but waked with a slight fever. I received a letter from Dr. Coke. As I thought, so it is. He is gone from Ireland to England, and will have work enough when he cometh there. The 3 grand divisions of that connection are alarming. It is a doubt if the doctor cometh to America until spring, if at all until the General Conference. I am more than ever convinced of the propriety of the attempts I have made to bring forward Episcopal men. First, from the uncertain state of my health. Secondly, from a regard to the union and good order of the American body, and the state of the European connection. I am sensibly assured the Americans ought to act as if they expected to lose me every day, and had no dependence upon Dr. Coke, taking prudent care not to place themselves at all under the controlling influence of British Methodists. I visited 3 families, talked and prayed in each, but was rather outdone. Sunday, 24. At Sherwood's Valley. I had greatly desired to speak to these people, and was much assisted so to do. My subject was 2 Corinthians 6:2. I considered by way of introduction what character of people they were who are to be the subjects of salvation: the lost, the enslaved, and those that cannot save themselves. First, Christ the author of this salvation, the meritorious, efficient, and moving cause. Secondly, the nature of this salvation, to reach all the misery and guilt of sinners, to save, redeem, and liberate. Thirdly, what bespeaks an accepted time and a day of salvation: to have God, Christ, the Spirit, ministers, means, and people that have religion say, "Behold, now is the day of salvation." I was able to speak fervently and regularly for an hour with great affection. I rejoiced to find that God had raised me up to call poor mourning souls to Christ, and to warn careless sinners. After 26 years, the gospel is established in this neighborhood, at a small distance from this house. I preached at Peter Bonnet's before the war, and after peace was restored, the blessing returned to his widow's house. 2 of his daughters are in fellowship with us. The widow Sherwood's was the substitute house, after the widow Bonnet went to live at New York. Now they are about building a church for the word and worship of God. I am happy to hear, by letters, of a revival of the work in several places in Virginia, as also in North and South Carolina. Monday, 25. The day was clear and very warm. I rode up to the plains and stopped at Elijah Crawford's. God hath honored this house. 2 young men are gone into the ministry out of it. I have ridden nearly 20 miles, and had it not been for the heat, I should have done well. Tuesday, 26. I wrote a letter to . He was under grief and trouble. This day Joshua Wells returned from Wilbraham Conference. Matters were conducted well. Wednesday, 27. The preachers came up, and Thursday, 28, we had a sermon and ordination of deacons. I was employed about 3 hours, and faint indeed. I rode 4 miles and lodged at Morgan's, Eastchester. This was an excessively warm day. Saturday, 30. We rode to New York, a very warm day. I found myself much injured, but was well nursed at the north side of the city. They have a touch of the fever here in George Street. Sabbath, October 1. We had much rain. Live or die, I preached at the Old and New Church on Isaiah 33:20 and Deuteronomy 28:9. I had some disagreeable things, and was but ill-fitted in body to bear them. Monday, 2. We rode about 27 miles to Hammond's. My fever rises every night. New Jersey, Tuesday, 3. We rode 30 miles to Joseph Hutchinson's. I lament most of all that I have not lived in a constant state of prayer. I have had most deep and sore temptations of many kinds, such as I could have hardly thought of in health. I must be tried so as by fire. By reason of the fever in Philadelphia, our conference is moved to Duck Creek, in the state of Delaware. Wednesday, 4. After the storm was over, we moved on as far as Crossweeks, and lodged at Father Lovell's. I was weak in body, but comfortable in mind. I visited 3 families, called at Hancock's, and saw my old friend of 26 years' membership. I came on to Burlington. Serious times still in Philadelphia. I was very unwell. I had an awful night. Friday, 6. We crossed Dunks's Ferry and came a rough, crooked way to Germantown. We had a meeting at Dr. Lusby's. Saturday, 7. We rode over the rocks, after crossing Schuylkill at a ferry, to Chester, and thence to Aaron Matson's. There is a new house and mill built since I was here, but there is room enough for Christ yet. We rode to Wilmington, where I preached on Psalm 46, 1 through 5. Delaware, Monday, 9. We came 38 miles to Duck Creek. Tuesday, 10. We began conference. I appointed the president elders to take my seat, and I sat alone, because the hand of the Lord was upon me. I was resolved to put out my strength to the last in preaching. My first subject was Isaiah 1, 26 through 28. My second was on Luke 17, 12. My third, 2 Corinthians 13, 11. Great times, preaching almost night and day. Some souls converted, and Christians were like a flame of fire. 11 persons were set apart for elders and 3 for deacons' orders. Friday, 13. We rose. I was much outdone, yet happy. We appointed a standing committee to inspect and direct the press. We read some passages of the notes on the discipline, and left the remnant to this committee. End of section 35. Recording by Brian Keenan.